Thanks for coming back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Steve Warner is what you would call a real Texas cowboy. He's in the wind and solar farm business now, but once upon a time, he had some adventures so unbelievable, think Yellowstone, he had to write about them, and the end result is his book, Fun Valley Cowboy.
Well, it started at Christmas of 2022. I was with my daughter and her boyfriend and my wife up in our cabin in Ruidoso, New Mexico. And it was just, I just watched my favorite movie and I'm sitting there by the fire in my buffalo robe. And they were talking about, all the great stories. Said, when are you going to write a book? I kind of talked about it. And I said, okay, I've got to start sometime. I'm kind of a procrastinator. So I thought, okay, I'll start it right now, and if I start something, I finish. So that's basically why I did it. And then plus, for years and years, everybody says you need to write a book. You got a lot of good stories, and basically, I just did it for the grandkids because I've always told them stories. When bedtime and stuff, they're all like, "Tell us some more stories. Tell us some more stories." And so I thought, yeah, I'll just do this for the kids and grandkids and their kids. Kind of my legacy, I guess you might say.
And you're a cowboy.
Yeah.
You say you knew from the time you were a little kid. That's what you were meant to be.
Yeah.
So I'm reading your synopsis. Did you really rattle deer for General Schwarzkopf and advertise with Nolan Ryan and guide Ted Nugent on hunts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And hobnob with world leaders?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, it just...
That's more than a cowboy. I hate to break it to
you,
Steve.
Yeah. Well, I was wildlife biologist for largest drilling company in the world. And they would have the vice president, chairman of the board of every major oil company down to our ranches once a year. So to get the highest people in the world in the oil industry, they had to have the best people in the world as speakers. And so we'd have General Schwarzkopf and Powell and Bush and Cheney and all these people through the years would come down and be speakers with us. And so, I got to know them all that way. And that I was the hunting guide and I'd take them all hunting and get to know them. And so it was just kind of a high profile. And then I invented a camouflage pattern just out of necessity because in the 80s, there was not any bark type camos. And when we rattled deer in South Texas, if you're wearing bark camo, if you back up 10 foot, you just look like a brown, like you're wearing a brown Sunday suit. So for a couple of years, I thought, well, I'm going to develop a camo that looks like a bush. It looks like you're seeing through a mesquite bush or something. And so I did that, and I basically did it just for us. But those printers and fabric converters, they don't want to print you a couple hundred yards just for you and your buddies to wear shirts. So it was, hundreds of thousands of yards. So it's like, okay, if we're going to do this, we've got to go commercial. So we went commercial. Long story short, second year it came out, it was the number one selling camo in Texas. Everybody wanted to be our buddies. Nolan Ryan came to us, and at that time, Advil was paying him millions of dollars to advertise for him. And he was advertising for us for free just because he wanted to be known as an outdoorsman, So it was a real high profile job. I was flying around in Learjets to Bass Pro and Cabela's, and it was pretty cool. And the funny thing is, my two bosses, the father and son, they were the biggest jokesters in the world. We had some of the world class jokes. They would go to any expense to pull a joke. We'd have somebody, the president of Exxon Oil, out in a fishing boat that we could pull the plug and have him sink out in the middle of the lake while he's fishing. Kind of a cruel joke, but it was. we had NBC. What am I trying to say? The nightly news, the anchor. So I'm trying to say. Do a special show for us to where we could turn it on during one of our meetings and pretend that Saudi Arabia was being bombed. This was when we had the brand new Secretary of Defense down. This was his first day, and he's watching this on TV. And I'm the guy in the corner with the video camera, video and all these things. So anyhow, it was pretty high profile, a lot of fun.
Oh my God! Did people appreciate your humor?
Well. That maybe not. Most of the time they did.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have a feeling you're very well known where you are.
Well, a little bit, especially in the 80s and 90s. I was pretty high profile. Most of the outdoor magazines, it was hard to find one that didn't have a picture of me, or because of our management program, we had some of the best deer. That was my primary job is raising giant white-tailed deer, and so we had all these big ranches. We could get almost anybody in the world to come hunting with us because of the ranches that we had in Texas, all over Texas, South Texas. And so when you invite outdoor writers to come down and help you, advertise your camo and stuff, you get a lot of publicity. So I was doing seminars and all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, there for a little bit, I was pretty well known.
So, what about this book? Go to your email list. Just say, here, I wrote a book.
I really didn't do this for money. I'm just, if it sells well and does well, that's great. But like I said, I just kind of did it for the grandkids. What I am surprised about is that, and it's just getting started. We haven't done. They're in the process of doing the audio book, but all my friends, everybody that finds out about it, are buying them. And they're telling me, especially all the family, they're like, Steve, how are you still alive? That's the first thing they all say. How are you still alive? Because of all the things that I've done. So but I'm a pretty shy person. I don't like attention, so I'm not going to be doing book signings or, videos or anything like that. This is about as far as it goes as far as publicity.
And people wonder why you're still alive with your stories of bear wrestling, being chased by bears, riding a Cape buffalo, being mauled by a plethora of exotic animals, cave exploration. Who would think?
Well,
who would think that would be difficult to survive?
Well, yeah, those are kind of some of the fun things. Just being shot at a bunch and a lot of misadventures on hunting trips and stupid stuff I did when I was kids. Chasing carp and falling over waterfalls and getting caught underwater. Pressure. There's 2 or 3 times that I've seen. They say right before you die, your whole life runs in front of your face. Well, that's happened to me several times. In fact, one time when I was underwater, being held down under a waterfall so long by the water pressure, all of a sudden I could see, even in the newspaper, and I can still see it right now, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little article that said, "Boy drowns at CYC." CYC was the name of a Christian youth center. And so there's just, I don't know. I've just been lucky. I've just done a lot of stupid things, especially when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling word's going to sneak out about Fun Valley Cowboy, and it might do better than you even expect.
Yeah, that was another deal. Wrangling horses up there for a couple of summers when I was in college. It was pretty wild. You take a bunch of college kids and just turn them loose, no supervision. Everybody has their own jobs. It was pretty interesting. There's a lot of if you've watched Yellowstone, all the antics in the bunkhouses, shooting guns and roping each other, and somebody come in drunk and we'd get fed up with them, we'd take them down and handcuff them to the hitching post all night and just let them sleep out there in the mud and the rain and stuff like that. Fun Valley was wild and crazy place. It's a lot of stories.
If your grandchildren are all that matter, are they old enough to read this yet?
I've got them from 10 to 18. I've got six of them from 10 to 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So has anybody read this yet?
I think they're all in the process of reading. My son called me the other day. He said, "Okay, I've got some questions." He said, "I've heard of most of your stories, but did you really borrow a donkey and ride over into Mexico when you were 12 years old and buy a bottle of mezcal and come back across the border and had the federales right behind you following you the whole way?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "You never heard that one?" He said, "No." And so he went on to talk about several more stories, and so even my son's like, "Okay, I can't believe this." So kind of funny.
Yeah, but I'm as your son. That's one thing. As a parent, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want my kids to read it.
Well, that,
Till they got old enough to know, like,
yeah,
maybe you shouldn't ride a donkey into Mexico. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah. And that's the second thing. That's the first thing they say, how are you still alive? And the second thing is, where were your parents? You know?
Yeah. Where were your parents? Were you one of many children?
No, just me and my sister.
All right. They
Yeah.
must have trusted you.
I guess we just had one of those, lifestyles. We just would get up in the morning, go off and play and hunt and fish down at the creek and roam around, get into trouble, and come back at night. And they never worried about me. So
All right. Steve Warner, author of Fun Valley Cowboy. Thank you so much.
you bet. Thank you.
Elizabeth Davis Russell was born in Liberia. She spent most of her life here in the U.S. in academia. The name of her book sums up some of the frustrations she faced. It's entitled Invisible Until Needed: One Woman's Journey Navigating Racism and Sexism in Higher Education on Two Continents. But Elizabeth, you say that it was January 6th. That was the day you decided to write this book. Why?
Well, as I said in part of the book, I had never in my life envisioned that such a scene would be taking place in America, in my adopted home. That I had expected that in places that had been dubbed third world countries or banana republics, etc. But not once did I dream that I would be witnessing that in this land. It shocked me because when I decided to become a citizen 30 something years ago, I did because of the ideals upon which this country was founded: freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, but democracy, the ability to move smoothly from one administration to another. And so what I saw, in essence, contradicted all of that for me.
And then you go from that into being a Black woman in America and how difficult in our educational institutions, how difficult that still is.
Yes, it is. As I mentioned, over 30 something years of my experience in higher education within predominantly white institutions. In many instances, I was the only Black faculty, and then as I moved up higher, the only Black female administrator. And in positions where they had never had a woman, let alone a Black woman.
Give us your background, Elizabeth.
I went to college in Michigan at Oakland University, graduated with a bachelor's degree, went to New York University, did a master's in educational psychology, then went to Yeshiva University in New York, got a doctorate in education, and then went back to New York University and got a PhD in clinical psychology. Also certifications in psychoanalytic psychology, etc. I started off as faculty member in California and then in New York with the State University of New York. I became provost and vice president for academic affairs. And at that point thought I was retiring when I got a call to go to Liberia to help develop the higher ed system after 14 years of civil war. So I worked in that post-war situation trying to build a university from the ground up and served as its president founding president for about 8 years, then returned home to California.
How did that work out?
I think it worked out very well. I was able to use some of the best practices I had learned in the States and shy away from some of the worst practices. But resources was an issue, were quite scarce. And so I spent quite a bit of time trying to develop both financial and personnel for the university. So recruited people from all over the world to indeed form a university that was national in its faculty and staff, but also its student body.
I mean, you are so accomplished, and yet there were times you felt that the only reason you were in the position you were in was because you were Black and because you were a woman.
I say that we are invisible, and I think I felt this very early in my career, that if you look at the literature of Black women in higher ed and talk with them, many talk about the invisibility they feel until they're needed to fill those two categories on forms. And yet, many are qualified or overqualified for the positions. I remember a situation where, when I was department chair, being the only woman of color in the division, I wanted to hire some faculty of color as adjuncts, very accomplished people. This was in New York City. At the time, I was with City University. And these were people who had their doctorates, years of experience. And yet the first question I got after submitting their vita and discussing their experiences was, are they qualified? So the saying commonly said among Black folks is, we have to be twice as good, sometimes even 3 times as good as our competitors.
In your book, do you talk about how do we move forward? And in this current environment, do you feel like we're moving backwards?
I definitely feel like we're moving backwards. Toward the end of the book, I share some lessons learned, and my focus there is particularly on women. And what I said, one is cultivating a community and sharing what you've learned and promoting other women, encouraging them, supporting them, and those of us who can be mentors. And it's particularly important that we have mentors. I remember when I was going through the process of promotion and tenure when I was a faculty, that I had no mentor. There was a colleague of mine, a young white woman, who was mentored by an older, more seasoned psychologist in the division. And she told her quite openly, I will be a mentor and I will show you the way to navigate to get promotion and tenure, the things you have to do. I had to learn that on my own. And so when I became provost, one of the first things I did was to establish programs for female faculty where we held seminars, we held brown bag lunches, talking about issues that affect one's ability to function within the university. What does it take for you to obtain tenure? What does it take for you to be promoted? So pairing them up with mentors who could help them with their programs of research and scholarship. So those are some of the things I see moving forward with women. I think as a society, they're looking at, and I disagree with people who say that there isn't systemic racism. There still exists systemic racism and sexism in our society. That doesn't mean that most people are racist. No, what it means is that the systems have been constructed very often that, in a way, exclude people who would otherwise be qualified. And so we have to systematically work to dismantle those and to build more inclusive systems.
How are you getting the word out about this book?
I have reached out. I'm a 50-year member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And I reached out to the regional area where, during one of our meetings, introduced that the book had just been published. And so they are promoting that within the region.
Great. What region is that?
This is Northern California.
Elizabeth Davis Russell, Invisible Until Needed. One woman's journey navigating racism and sexism in higher education on 2 continents. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan.
The name of our next book is Bipolar Firsthand, My Journey from Hell and Depression to Peace and Self-Love. It's written by Patty Hansen. Patty, this has been a really long journey for you, and I can't imagine the relief you must feel. How long ago did you actually start writing this?
I started doing this book about 10 years ago. There was so much to talk about that I just started writing a book. And then, I had, edits along the way and help along the way and classes and things that taught me how to write it. And finally, I got it out there.
What happened in your childhood?
Well, on the back of my book, it says the book is about my journey back to life. Maybe I should just read the part of the back of the book that is the most telling, where it says, I am at peace after being beaten bloody as a child, experiencing the raw emotion of gang rape, dealing with decades of bulimia, having been married and divorced 8 times, and attempting suicide more times than I can count.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot, yeah.
But I mean, it sounds like you were failed from the time you were a child.
Yeah. My dad had a really explosive temper. And if he wasn't obeyed, then the object of his disobedience was either severely punished or killed. And so there was that. And then my mother, she was afraid of him as well. And so during the beatings, she would hide. And so she was never even in sight, or even afterwards when I was all bloody and the sheets were all bloody, I would lay there and just cry silently so no one could hear. And then the next day there was never any words of comfort or even acknowledgement that it had happened.
Were you going to school at the time? Did anyone notice that you might be an abused child?
Well, I remember during breaks from class, I showed a couple of my friends the beating bruise, belt strap welts, but I never showed an adult. And in those days, a lot of kids got hard spankings.
How did you finally break free?
Well, I got married when I was 18, traded one kind of abuse for another.
So when were you finally diagnosed?
When I was hauled off to the funny farm and I was like 19 or 20. That's when it came to light, but accepted. It was too tough a pill to swallow because I'd been a good student. I got good grades in school. I was athletic. I was doing fine until, well, I wasn't really doing fine, but no one knew it because I hid it. I thought I was having a personal experience with God during all these grief moments of my life. So I hid it. I didn't let anybody see it.
How did you wind up in an institution?
My thoughts and feelings were completely out of control and unrealistic, and I had a baby and things weren't getting any better, and I ran away, and my dad came and got me and took me to a psychiatrist who told me I shouldn't do that again. And I got a divorce and moved in with a girlfriend, and my son was with my parents, and I saw him often. But my mother, earlier in my life, she taught me that a mother was a person who wasn't there. And so I didn't know why, but I couldn't be there for my son either. And the reason was because a mother is a person who isn't there, which I spent 50 years trying to forgive myself for, and I finally did. After I was taken to the hospital by my parents, there was a group of 30 people who came into my room, and they were judges and lawyers and psychiatrists and all kinds of professional people. And they all agreed that I was sick enough to go to the Oregon State Hospital. So I went there. I remember one time I got tackled by these 9 men in white coats, and they gave me a shot then they of Prolixin, which creates a zombie reaction. And then they put me in this room called a side room, where the walls are decorated by fecal matter, because when people are put in the side rooms, they can scream and yell and nobody shows up. So I wanted out of there really badly, and my girlfriend Ruby, I could see her from the window in the door, which was a little book size chicken wire mesh door. And I called to her and I asked her for a match, and she wasn't supposed to go near the side rooms, and she knew that. So it took her about an hour, but she got the match and kicked it under the door. And so I was strapped to the bed with these leather straps, and I had to move the whole bed with my body down to the bottom of the door so I could reach the matches, and my arm was bleeding from the straps when I finally got a hold of it. But when I finally did, I set the bed on fire because I figured I could scream loud enough and in a way that would get someone to come and look through that window. And it happened, and they finally got in, and we were coughing by the time he got all the straps untied, and I got out. And I still had to stay in there, but I agreed to stay in there, but only if I wasn't strapped to the bed and the door was open. So anyway, there was a lot of stories like that from the mental institution, and from my life in general, all the risk taking that I used to do, because it didn't matter to me whether I was alive or dead.
But somehow you managed to come through it all, and that's what your book's about.
It's a very triumphant story, and I had lots of help. I seeked out help because I knew that I wasn't okay. It started when I read a book called Women Who Love Too Much, and I went to a deal where this lady was speaking. Her name was Sandra Custer, and she was speaking on this book that I had just finished reading. I was working in the barbershop at the time, and I went to a workshop that she was doing later, and I raised my hand during the talk and I said, what if you don't feel any anger toward this person who abused you? Because she was suggesting that people felt a great deal of anger toward their abusers. And she said, I suspect that you've been stuffing your feelings for so long that you don't even know what they are. And she was right, because it turned out I was plenty pissed off.
And that was the beginning
Yeah.
of your recovery. You say now you have found peace, that you're able to navigate your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Was this a slow transformation over time?
Yes. Over 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. I finally got a handle on it when I was like 73, and now I'm 75.
It's a miraculous transformation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it gives hope to people who are suffering from bipolar disorder and depression and mental illness.
Yeah, it truly makes them feel like they're not alone.
Yeah.
And all the tools that I used to get well are in the book. Every single tool that I ever got, I put in the book.
All right. Patty Hansen, Bipolar Firsthand, My Journey from Hell and Depression to Peace and Self-Love. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're sure welcome. Thank you.
What is God, and how do you even start the conversation with a child? It's a question Joyce Bolton believes she can answer in her book, What is God? A Rusty's Neighborhood series. So you consider yourself a storyteller, period, right?
I've been making up stories in my head probably since 10 years old. It's just one of those things that just I do with my mind all the time. Is I see things and I just create little stories. It occupies me so that I'm never bored.
Did you ever write them down?
Oh, every once in a while and stuff. But I never thought anybody would be interested in hearing or reading any of the stories. It was just it's things that entertained me, and it was always something that I shared with relationships with people that I knew, and I would tell them stories and that was always entertaining. But I wanted to give back. This particular topic is very, very close to my heart, and this is what I wanted to give back to society to help them know God is real and He's easy to get to know. And this is it doesn't have to be a topic that you can't talk about.
You talk about an 8-year-old boy named Rusty. Is that based on someone you know?
Oh, no. It's just opening the conversation that children may have when they ask, what is God? To either, their friends or to their teachers, to their parents, to their older siblings, to, anywhere that conversation comes up, this book can help, you guide through the conversation. A book that lets people understand it's okay to talk about God. When you talk about God, you need to open up and find God. A lot of people think maybe they have questions about God, but who do they turn to? Who's got the answers? And it's the answers are everywhere. And it's not a difficult subject. Don't make it hard. It's simple. But there are tricks to understanding. There is principles to this madness, and hopefully I brought those principles to the story in the book, and that will help you start you on your way.
So you've got this 8-year-old boy named Rusty, and he goes to his mom. and he wants to know, what about God? He's got a friend.
Well, his friend is very involved in Sunday school and thinks highly, and so Rusty's like, well, what he sees the importance that his friend puts in understanding God. He goes to his mother and he asks his mother, what is God? Because he hears about God, but really, what is it? And his mother, not being fully educated on the subject herself, says, well, let's put together a project and find out about God together. So it's the journey that they do together to find out God and their steps on that journey.
So can you tell me some of those steps?
It's all of his neighborhood friends and understanding and reaching out to others and seeing what they consider is important. So we go through learning the principles of God, and that's where you start. Everybody needs to start learning the principles of God.
What do you mean, principles of God?
Love comes from God. Love is God. Love is generated from God. Love is a principle of God. Goodness, principle of God.
And how do we illustrate that for these kids?
That you know what, you're asking some really good questions, and they are big questions, and that's why I want you to read my book. It's the journey of the mother and Rusty finding, going out and seeking out what the answer is to God. That's the story. It takes you through that whole process. Is God real? What is God about? And those are that's the discussions. That's what he finds out when he goes out and explores. The discovery. They're beginners. They don't know everything, so they're asking all the questions. They're the ones that bring the doubts. Well, how do you know it's real? All that kind of stuff. It's you will love it. You will love it. It's not threatening. It's comforting. The book is comforting, and it's that's what a lot of reviews come back and say. They say that it's a heartfelt story that opens up the discussion of a very complicated area that everyone considers but doesn't really know how to talk about, and it just it gives you a lot of insights to the whole discussion, and it's something that every family and every person can gain and should have on their bookshelf. It's a lovely, inspiring story, and I think you would enjoy it. I think all the readers would enjoy it.
I see on the cover, it looks like they're in a pool.
Oh yeah, they have. I mean, that's the place that Rusty. It's a big park, and that's the place that they play with all of their friends. It's Rusty's neighborhood. They live around a big city park, and that's one of it's called the Shallows. That's one of the areas they really like to play in because it's only 2 or 3 inches deep of water, and they can splash and play around in there, and I just get all muddy. It's one of the fun things to do in summer.
Are you going to keep writing?
Oh yeah, I'm in the middle. I'm actually coming up to the end of my second book. This is a bigger novel, but then I've got this book that I have that you're seeing, the one that has Rusty's Neighborhood series. I've got 3 more that I've outlined to continue the series. It's not all on the same topic, but they're it's Rusty's neighborhood. It's all of his friends and stuff, and some of the things that they get up to and how they manage to get themselves out.
All right.
It's typical kids.
Those crazy kids. Thank you, Joyce Bolton, author of What is God? A Rusty's Neighborhood series.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure.
The name of our next book is Reflecting at Age 92 by Dr. Dow O. Woodward, who was blessed with a brilliant mind that he was able to share with the world through his research in genetics. Dr. Woodward, thanks so much for joining us. The fact that you wrote this book is an achievement in itself.
I wrote it because it's the story of my life. And my early years have prompted me to be an academic. And so I prepared to go to Stanford.
Where does your story begin?
In Utah, Logan, Utah. I went to church always when I was young, and I was introduced to the Mormon culture. My parents were very strict, and they took me to church, and my father was a professional, and he gave me early lessons. Early school was not new to me. My father taught me everything, and so school was very repetitious.
What did your dad do for a living?
He was an agronomist. He developed new strains of wheat and barley. He was a very smart man. My younger life was controlled by my dad, and it was a very happy life. And so I was allowed to pursue anything that was of an interest to me, and I got interested in genetics because my dad was an expert in genetics, and that led to my interest in graduate school that I did in Yale. And after graduate school, I went to Stanford to teach, and the things in my books are what led up to that.
So what drew you to study human genetics?
I wanted to know how people were related to each other. And I studied genetics in all kinds of organisms. I started out with bacteria and viruses, and because it's easier to study in bacteria and viruses, and I used that to investigate human genetics.
And while you made some remarkable discoveries, you believe anyone is capable of doing amazing things if they want it bad enough.
The most important message is you can start with humble beginnings and expand it to any area of life you want. And there's nothing to prevent it except your own motivations. And my dad motivated me, and I thank him for that, because it was my motivation that caused me to go to graduate school and ultimately to write a story of my life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your life story.
Yeah, I appreciate the interest you have in my book.
Well, I'm sure your family appreciates the fact that you wrote this book too.
Yeah, all of my relatives appreciate it.
All right. Dr. Dow O. Woodward, reflecting at age 92. Thanks so much.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.